Welcome, everyone. So let's kick off. Thank you very much for being here today and hope you're keeping safe. And we have a very exciting webinar for you today. And I'd like to welcome the panelists first. We've got Ayush Kumar from Capgemini, from the Insights and Data Practice at Capgemini. And I've got with me Levante Barzi, Levi. He's a client engineer at digitalasset. And today we are going to be talking to you about how to bridge data silos within an enterprise and enable every application to have a common golden source of truth. And we'll get into the background a little bit as we go along. Just a couple of quick ground rules for the webinar. Of course, this was supposed to be a physical meetup in New York, but then we decided to convert it to a webinar because of the coronavirus outbreak. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to post them in the Q&A portion of the Zoom, and I'll post them as required. We'll obviously be sending out a recording of the webinar. That's a benefit of doing a webinar over a meetup. So we'll definitely be sending out a copy of the webinar as also a copy of the slide deck that we'll use. So definitely, if you have to leave early, feel free to do that. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ayush for kicking it off. And thank you very much, Ayush, for hosting this webinar for us.
Yep, sounds good, Manish. Thanks again. Thanks everyone for joining. So Manish, you can hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, perfect. Yep, so thanks again. I know a lot of the attendees are from our meetup groups. We extended this event across all the regions as opposed to keeping it concentrated for New York. And again, looking forward to, once we are past this crisis here. So again, yeah, hopefully everyone is keeping safe and doing well and, continue to do so. So what I'll do, right, is I do want to introduce Capgemini, right, with the group, because I know we are meeting for the first time. I want everyone to understand what we do from our core business perspective. And from there, we'll talk about the theme at hand, right? And of course, our partners, Digitalasset, Manish and Levante are here to walk us through the main pieces of it, right? So again, I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully everyone can see it as well. So we are part of Capgemini. We are a global systems integrator. We have been in the space for half a century and more. What we do, right, is I represent the financial services arm of this organization, and specifically the banking side. So of course, we are with every top organization that you can think of. We are engaged with them. We are partnering with them. The group that I'm part of is called Insights and Data, and you would notice that from the meetup groups as well. That's the main theme. And what we do, right, is anything to do with data analytics, advanced analytics is what we do. And of course, we are global across different regions. We have dedicated, focused R&D labs and also client-specific ecosystems and fintech ecosystem as well. So definitely we are thinking ahead in the game, and that's what we see from our industry reviews and also the publicly posted thought leadership, right? For instance, World FinTech reports, point of views, and of course, World Payment Report. And these all are available online. I think most of them or everything would be free. So I would highly encourage you guys to go through it, see what our thought process is and where the industry is going. We are globally recognized by every top agency you can think of, and that builds the confidence, right, and trust with our clients as well. We partner with the who's who in the technology field. Of course, we are here with our premier partner as well. So we are aware of the technology shift, right, that is going on in the industry. And this is just a very high level extract of the engagements we do, right? And most of these programs, if you look at, right, there are some challenges that we try to kind of solve for, right, for our clients. And these are specifically on the data side. And a lot of these engagements are pretty large. We go in as a thought leader. We are also the digital transformation agents for our clients. And this is where the true partnership comes across, right? And You can also imagine us partnering with the next generation of technology, which in this case is smart contracts, Daml, DLTs, right? This is where it will provide us that needed insight and guidance that we pass it on to our clients, right? So that's our main goal. So specifically on the challenges, right? And this is where the segue would be to Manish and his team to walk us through the smart contracts and how they fit in. So if you notice right now, I'm focusing on the CDO organizations, right? Where you have the governing body, you have the standards and policies to be mentioned, you have the data architecture, right? But those are the drivers, but what are the challenges, right? So definitely is the governance around it, right? You have data in silos. We all have heard it like thousands of times. I've been hearing it since 90s. We all have been hearing that, right? So are we solving those? Yeah, we are, right? There are different techniques we use. We have our own frameworks. We have the right expertise, but then we are also trying to combine that with the newer technology stack, right? And also the architecture patterns that we see. And of course, there is the lineage quality of it and the enormous amount of data, right? There are a few engagements where we deal with like petabytes of data. We are doing the cloud strategy and of course the transformation. But then it's financial services, right? So we do focus on risk, compliance, legal, and that's where the right combination falls in. So in that specific notion, Manish, do you want to take it up and let's start the webinar? And of course, we will address Q&As as we see it. And Manish will be sharing those with me, with Levante. And yeah, so looking forward to our event.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ayush. Thank you very much, Ayush.
No problem.
So yeah, let me share my screen, and I'm going to take you through the problem statement that we are here with, and then we can see how to address that. Okay. Okay, so what we are going to be talking about, like I said before, is to bridge silos within the enterprise and tangibly represent your business processes. And we're going to see how you can use smart contracts to do it. Um, First of all, just a little bit about Digital Asset. And we were founded in 2014. We created Daml, the smart contract language that is, of course, in use at many of the clients that you see at the bottom, all the logos. The Australian Securities Exchange is replacing their entire post-trade settlement platform, equity settlement platform, with a Daml application hosted on the blockchain. And then, of course, there are several other use cases, not only in the financial services industry, but in pharmaceuticals and healthcare as well, and in supply chain and track and trace as well. Daml now is open source. The key here is that Daml also runs on multiple ledgers. So Daml, we make the smart contract language, and we've integrated that so that it runs seamlessly without any changes on most of the popular blockchain platforms out there. In addition, and what's most important for this webinar today is that it also runs on databases. So databases like AWS SQLDB, Microsoft's SQL Server, Postgres, you name it, adapters are available to run on the database. And of course, the other thing that we do is what we call Project Daml, which is our Daml cloud environment, which helps startups get to market faster, and obviously enterprises so that they can prototype their applications quickly before they go to market. As everybody's aware, it all started with the thought of reducing silos between enterprises. Multiple applications, multiple companies working with each other, for example, in supply chain or in finance or in healthcare, between hospitals and insurance firms. Everybody exchanges a lot of information. And traditionally, each of these enterprises have maintained data silos, their own data silos, exchanging information through various methodologies like APIs and file transfers and all of that stuff. That leads to expensive reconciliation procedures that have to be done on continuously, sometimes in a real-time basis. Obviously, it leads to multiple latencies and as well as customer experience issues. So any one of us who's made a bill payment online for a credit card knows that you make a payment and then it shows up on your online screen maybe the next day, or in the worst case sometimes even a couple of days late. So why does all of this happen? Because each of these applications and enterprises have their own data silos, and they have to continuously sync with each other to make sure the copy of the data that they have is the latest copy. What's important for this webinar is that this concept of reducing, of integrating and bringing all of these different enterprises on the same data platform is also true within an enterprise. Um, within an enterprise, as Ayush pointed out, most of their work is around, enabling enterprises to engage on next generation analytics and artificial intelligence initiatives. And each of these enterprises have multiple applications that are required to execute a single business process. Each of these applications obviously has, their own data silos and their own mechanisms to keep in sync with each other. And that's what we're going to say, that's what we're going to see, addressing with Daml and smart contracts. Typically, this is what happens in any enterprise. There are multiple applications. They are linked together by a virtual pipeline. If you are asked for a business process of your enterprise, it's very unlikely that you'll have a latest copy, that you can show or you can produce. Most often, it's in the form of video diagrams, process flow diagrams, multiple architecture diagrams. And the fact is that as soon as you produce those artifacts, they're out of date because something has changed in production. And most of the times, each of these applications is searching for that single source of truth, and they have to keep reconciling with each other and syncing up to reduce errors, making sure that the data they have matches with the data that the other application has. And obviously, there are many operational problems. In this case, it's a simple thing. If there is a broken process, there's typically a pretty comprehensive process that has been put in place by enterprises to figure out where the break is. How do you make sure that the data pipeline gets up and running again, and bring all those business processes in sync again. And this obviously affects your business intelligence and AI initiatives. Traditionally, any data initiative, or if you consider the data pipeline, you start with aggregating all of the information in one place from all of these applications. Then you have to reconcile and clean all of this information, because most often data definitions don't match. You don't have the same picture of a business process in multiple applications. Who's right? Whose data is outdated? So you have to figure all that out, clean, build all of those rules in place, and finally arrive at a clean picture of the data. Then you enrich the data with data from other sources that might be required, like metadata, or a customer process might require data from the CRM to be imported and made part of the big overall data landscape. Finally, you get to your analysis, which is running operational reporting, running business intelligence, and running artificial intelligence initiatives as well, or predictive analytics. The fact is that 45 to 60% of your effort is spent on the first two phases, and that's what we'll address using smart contracts today. And some examples of the virtual pipeline, anything that you see, wherever there's a business process, the problem exists. So if you have a claim, it runs through multiple applications, runs through multiple enterprises even. Anytime somebody is applying for a loan, applying for a mortgage, it has the same thing. There's a mortgage origination system, there's a underwriting system, then you have the customer experience systems, then you have the e-statementing systems, and all of that stuff. Data has to be passed back and forth between them. And all of these applications are constantly reconciling with each other to make sure there is a consistent single version of the truth. Traditional approaches, obviously, like I mentioned, each of them are keeping in sync through APIs, data transfers, etc. But obviously they are not enough, because they don't solve the underlying problem. They help you overcome the problem that has been caused by data silos, but they don't actually solve the problem of having data silos in the first place. And Daml, as Levy's going to show you in a couple of minutes, it solves that by providing this layer across applications, which allows you to mutualize your business process in the form of Daml smart contracts, where each of the application can plug into this Daml smart contract layer and execute the process. And for the first time with this model, you see that your business process is reflected in the Daml smart contracts that you write. So at any point in time, you could look into your Daml smart contract layer and easily figure out what your business process looks like, who are the stakeholders, what kind of data are they sharing, and if there is a process break, where that break happened. And now the result is that the pipeline is now real. Each of these applications may still have their own databases for various operational reporting, analysis, Chinese wall purposes. But now you also have a golden source of smart contract data, which has been enabled by Daml. And this smart contract data is what is then used to drive your enterprise reporting, enterprise analytics, and all of those initiatives which affect business performance. And obviously, you don't spend, ideally, you won't spend any time on aggregating and reconciling, but practically you might, but it reduces that effort dramatically. So Daml, Levy's going to go into that a little bit more detail later on. But it's the smart contract language, which has granular, already built-in mechanisms for privacy, disclosure, and authorization. And it also obviously has a rights and obligations model, which allows you to treat any of your enterprise business processes in terms of digital assets. So think about a credit card process, for example. Your credit card is a digital asset. Any actions on it, applying for a credit card, approving a credit card, issuing an e-statement on a credit card, raising a fraud on a credit card, each of these activities is being done on that underlying digital asset, which is the credit card. That's what Daml allows us to do when we model that business process as a smart contract layer. Each of your business process is converted to a series of actions that are being taken on a digital asset, thereby allowing any stakeholder, whether it's an application, a business user, multiple enterprises, being able to pull that digital asset up and figure out what's going on with that. And this I already covered. Daml runs on multiple ledgers, so you've got a choice. The one that is most important for us is on the right-hand side here, where Daml runs on databases, which is most likely the scenario that you'll use within the enterprise. Okay, so with that, I'll just pause for a second to see if there are any questions on the, let me just quickly see if there's anything on the chat. Okay, so there's a question about Daml's multi-platform support, especially on public chains, and where it fits in the smart contract stack. Yeah, so Eric, let me address that. As we get to Levy's portion, as he explains the use case, we can address some of it then. So Levy, would you like to take over now and show them the use case that we've modeled out?
Sure thing. Let me go ahead and share my screen here.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to stop sharing.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, perfect. All right, so hopefully we can make this a slightly more interactive. What we've built out here is kind of a treasury function within an enterprise. So the idea is that different participants can request funding for their projects or for their desks from a treasury department who can grant it or deny it. And once those funds have been allocated, they can be used to spend on items. So you can think of it as a budgeting tool or literally a treasury function, which can loan to desks at certain rates. And this is a very kind of good use case for distributed ledgers, even within an enterprise, because you have all of these sort of natural Chinese walls between different desks, between different departments, but they all have to communicate through the treasury. They all sort of have to deal with the treasury in terms of, basically wiring money. So we wrote a multi-party application. It took about an hour or so. We've then created this front end for it. It's not very attractive or anything like that, but hopefully it gets the idea across. And then we deployed it on our cloud environment. So if you'd like to play along, what I'll do is, and what we'll do is basically, give and spend money. So hopefully it should be a little fun. But what I'll do is I'll send out a URL that you can go to. Let's see, where's the chat? I'll send out a URL that you can all go to.
Yeah, and Levi, when you paste it, just make sure it says sending to all attendees.
Yep, I'm all panelists and attendees, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you guys get it? Okay, and hopefully it should take you to a website that looks like this. You may have to create a Daml login, and the easiest way to do that is to use your Google account or something like that. Don't worry, we're not collecting passwords or anything like that. Once you've created a Daml account, you'll actually be created automatically a user, which is going to have something descriptive and not random at all, like this on the top. If you'd like to receive some money from me in this case, go ahead and please send me your user ID once you've logged in, and I'll be able to sort of give you money, and then you'll be able to spend it, and you'll be able to give it to other participants if they're willing to give up their user ID within the chat. So go ahead and go to the website I just sent out, the EXUMS, et cetera. Oh, here we go. I got Bart here.
Bart, yeah.
Okay. So what I will go ahead and do is, so I have
a disclaimer. This is not real money, right?
Oh, is it? Isn't it? No, it's not. So let's see. I'll split off 10,000 over here. And here we go. Here's the 10,000. Let me go ahead and give it to this ID. And hopefully you'll receive that. Yep, okay, you got that. So, and by the way, you can see this is the accounts that I'm giving to here. So this is my overall treasury amount. That's how much has been minted. And you can see that it's issued and owned by different people. Okay, so let me see. So here's another 10,000. Let me give some more. Let's see. Cool. So let's go ahead and give this out here. Hopefully I won't give away my entire funding here. Okay. As you come online, hopefully I'll be adding more. So and hopefully those of you that got money will be able to see this screen here. So there'll be a list of all of the effectively the smart contracts that have been issued to you, and you'll be able to give it and spend it and so forth. One thing I would advise you to do is when you give the money to somebody, that gives the entire amount away. So beforehand, I encourage you to split off a certain section and then give that out. Okay. If you want to spend some of the money, so I have, let's split off another section here.
Can they spend part of the money, or when they hit spend, all of the money would be spent?
All of the money would be spent. So it's basically you have to split first and then spend second.
Okay.
Here's the 5,000 here. And I'll say if I want to write a check here, I'm going to say, here's the 5,000. I'll say, I don't know, pay for rubber gloves, something like that. And what will happen is this will actually get sent to the as a wire to the Treasury Department to basically send outside. Okay, here we go. One more person here. So I'm going to me split off some more money here. Okay, here we go. So I will give this to the new person that just joined. Okay, here we go. You can see that the issuer and the owner changed. And as might be obvious at this point, there is a distributed ledger in the background of this, which is keeping track of all of the different spends and the different amounts. So let's see. Did I accidentally give all my money away? No, I did not. That's good. So some of the money I have, so let me split off some more. Let's split off $2,000. There's $2,000. Let's say, send it out, which will then get translated into a wire. Some of you might have been hitting a transaction limit that was encoded in the background here. Okay, so now we have a few users here. Let me show you a little bit what's going on in, oh, one more button here. So you can spend money, you can split off your account, and you can give it to somebody else. Sweeping will let you join two accounts together. So for instance, if I want...
There's a question from Vishal. He's saying, I think he can log in, but he can't see anything.
You can log in. Did you give me your username yet? Oh, no, I didn't give you any money. That's why.
Yeah.
So let's give him some money.
Yeah, Vishal, I think you have to copy that user ID, which shows up on the right-hand side of your screen on the top. And
oh, there's two Vishal. That's okay. That's why I'm confused. There's two Vishals.
Yeah, there's Vishal Jayanti we already have, I think, but Vishal Oja we don't have.
Okay. So let's split off some more money for that. Here's $10,000, and let's give it over here. Okay.
And Zach, I'm not sure if Zach has pasted his party ID yet.
Vishal J, did you get your money? Actually, I know for a fact that you did get your money because there is an indisputable ledger behind this, which is now our shared source of truth. And you spent it immediately. Well done. Well done.
So he needs more.
Actually, you did not. You did not spend the money yet. You're still at 10,000 actually. So the point is, oh, you transferred it to somebody else. Okay, that's possible. Let's see. The point is, all of us now have a shared source of truth about who's giving money to what and so forth. However, none of you all can see anybody else's transactions, right? You can only see yours, and I, as the treasurer, and therefore the person basically lending these or giving these lines of credit out, I can see everything, of course. And even in cases where you've given the ownership away to somebody else. Okay, so this is just a kind of a toy example of what we can do with this. Oh, that's right. Yep, good point to from Manish there. You need to send me this ID if you want money. So it's just a small example of what sort of a Chinese wall of distributed ledgers can do and what we mean by solving some of these data silos. It's not the case that you all have your it's not the case that you all have a copy of this ledger running somewhere, but you are authenticated with that user that you logged in as, and you are granted certain protections. So nobody can take your money away from you, even if I know as the treasurer that it's the contract ID that, let's say, this person has, I won't be able to give that away to somebody else. I'm not going to be able to re-gift this money to myself. Here we go. I'll try to do that, and it's just not going to work. And this isn't being prevented at some application level. That's very important here. All of these requests that I'm making are actually going to a distributed ledger. They're being checked for veracity, and they're being checked to see for things like, am I supposed to see the contract? Has the money been spent already? Is it a legitimate choice for me to do? And all of those factors have been encoded within Daml. So there was a question there about what exactly is that Daml layer. And what's going on here is, so this is a React front end that I'm dealing with that we wrote, and it's sending REST request. So REST is a type of an API. So it's sending these calls via the web using URLs as tokens in a way that I can't see or discover to a distributed ledger, which is governed by Daml. In this case, the back end of the distributed ledger is our cloud-based DLT, but with the same code at the application level and also at the Daml level, this could be deployed to any number of different ledgers that are available, including VMware, Corda, Hyperledger, etc. And all of that will be completely invisible to you. And I'm not sure if you've done many blockchain projects in the past, but end users don't really care about what the thing is running on. They care that, one, their privacy is being respected, and they care that the thing works, that you're not going to have to reconcile between different versions of the truth. And in this case, this is what we're seeing.
Just one quick clarification to some of you who may not be blockchain developers, but who are working in the data and analytics departments of your respective companies. You need not run these models on a blockchain, but you can also run them within your enterprise on a database, and that's what gives you the multi-party, the power of Daml within the enterprise.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so it can also run on a SQL database, for instance, in the background. And once again, that's going to be completely transparent to the end user. They only care about basically business logic. They only care about the business logic and privacy. There was a question there for, is there support for WebSockets? Yes. So this UI is actually built based on WebSockets. So it's a React front end which is talking to the Daml layer or the DLT layer using WebSockets. Okay, so let's see a little bit what's under the hood here. And I'm going to emphasize again that we wrote this entire thing, and by we, I mean mostly me. We wrote this thing in less than a day, including the business logic, which is written in Daml, as well as the front office, and the entirety of the deployment was taken care of. So you get a faster time to market, but you also get to stay there longer because now you're able to offer this shared source of truth. So this is Daml. This is really the sort of secret sauce that comes from digitalasset. It's a smart contract language that lets you model out the behaviors, the rights, the privacy requirements of smart contracts on a distributed ledger. Hopefully, if you're looking at this, and even though you're not technical, you'll be able to understand what these smart contracts are doing. So those tokens that you guys have been passing around have been of type funding, which are described by these fields and the behavior that I spell out below. So yeah, you can spend it, you can give it away, you can split it up, and you can sweep two funds together into a single account. And hopefully none of this is really rocket science looking, and that's done deliberately. All of the sort of heavy lifting that you normally have to do on the architecture layer or the persistence layer is abstracted away from you. So there's no SQL commands in here. There's nothing about hashing or cryptography or about authorization or anything other than the business logic. And hopefully you can see that here. So for instance, when we say, okay, we want to spend, this is either going to result in a wire request to the Treasury, or it's going to actually create that wire. And so you send in the settlement instructions and we say, okay, this is the wire that we want to create. If the amount that we want to spend is greater than the limit, then create a wire request to the Treasury, okay, with all of the details that we wanted. And it's actually going to lock your account. It's basically going to put it in an escrow. Otherwise, create the wire directly. And what that'll mean is within an organization that's going to be picked up by, let's say, a settlement, like a settlement utility, which will then create the actual wire. Okay, and all of the 100% of Daml is like this. It's going to be describing how smart contracts work in a business context. Okay, a very important point here is that which is a little bit different with Daml as opposed to other languages, is that it enforces privacy and rights very, very, very strictly. It basically says that any type of funding has to be backed by the Treasury, and the Treasury is never going to be placed inside that obligation without their consent. And nothing can happen on this persistence layer on the ledger that isn't one of these choices on here.
Levi, there's a question from Bart. Can you explain the left and right in the return?
This thing right here?
Yeah, the left wire request and the right wire.
Okay, yeah, very simple. So the type of this, the type of this choice is either going to result in a wire request. Basically, it's going to create a new contract of type wire request or of contract type wire. And it's basically saying that in the case of a wire request, that we have to make the request because we're over that wire limit, it's going to be using the left side of this either type. This entire thing here is the type of the return, and here we're just indicating that in this case it's the left side of that return. It's useful when let's say the either is going to be the same type. Whereas with when we're saying the right side, it's basically create the wire directly. Okay. Yeah. So if for the more computer science folks out there, the left and right are there to ensure that the type of this return is consistent.
Yeah, and Levi, could you explain the concept of the signatory, which is on top, the signatory issuer, and also the concept of the controller, and who can exercise the choice spend? For in this case, can the issuer do spend? Can you explain that?
Good point. So here, as I said about the signatory, is that's the person who's responsible for this type of contract. They're the obligeable party, that's the liability party, however you want to look at it. The controllers, on the other hand, in this case, the owner gets to do everything, is the person who has the asset side of that transaction. Or in this case, it's a person who can do something, he may do something, he has the option to, however you want to look at it. But this is also the only thing that is required to specify that when I go back to my UI here, that let's look at this token for $100. Oh, by the way, I shouldn't say token. It's a contract for $100. Even though I'm the treasurer and I'm a stakeholder to this contract because I'm undersigning this thing, and really that's undersigned and signatory are kind of hand in hand. If I try to actually spend this thing, let's see, I want to buy a smoothie for $100, then I won't be able to do it. Now, there's an exception which is being thrown out here that we're ignoring, but effectively there's no way I could do this. However, if I take a look at one of my own tokens, so let me split off $500 here. Since this is my own token as a treasurer, I can use that to buy my smoothie. There we go. So now a wire has been created. So we had a look at Daml, but also the logic with the the limits is enforced directly in Daml. On top of this, one can imagine that you build things like loan library where one desk can lend to another. And in fact, the business logic for that is deployed. It's just that I didn't build the front end for it. But speaking of which, the minute you deploy your Daml model, a Damlized ledger immediately exposes an API for dealing with those smart contracts. So technically, any of you, if you are technically inclined, would be able to connect to that URL that I sent out and see what your basically use your token, use your JOT token to see all of your contracts in sort of a programmatic manner. So there's a REST endpoint right now, which is being exposed here for those technically involved.
They can copy the curl thing from the party JOT dropdown, right?
Yep. In fact, what I'll do is I will send you, let me see if I can, I will send you my own curl token. So normally I shouldn't give my JOT away, but what I'll do is I'll send that. You can type this into a terminal if you're inclined, and then you can see that it's a globally exposed endpoint. Oops. So I'll run that curl command here too. Oops. Never mind. I sent the wrong thing. Just a sec. I should copy it as a curl command, not the JOT command. Now, that thing is long and complicated, but if we have a look, most of it is actually just a token. So if you're familiar with public-private key cryptography, most of this is the public version of the token, and then the rest of it is really the endpoint, where it says HTTPS API blah blah blah. That's the actual REST endpoint. Sort of that gets us a little bit to what's in the back end of my UI. So this is the front end, which is actually being hosted itself on our cloud-based server here. So I deployed that asset, which is a React front end, and it is backed up by my Daml model. So here's the Daml model that I uploaded. And this is spelling out all of the business processes and all of the APIs of that ledger. And in fact, this is the only thing I have to do to set up a smart contract. Sorry, to set up a DLT. I sort of also have a God's eye view of the data on this ledger. And this is strictly because you all logged onto my ledger, so I can see that these are the logins that you have used to do so. But I can't actually see anything here. So I'm only as your name has been exposed because that's what you specified, for instance, at Google. But even that could be obscured if you chose to do so. So I don't see any details about that. But from my perspective, I can see all of the contract that we saw before. So most of these are funding requests, and you can see kind of the technical version of the contract itself.
So these are what you have access to are your transactions that you made with these guys, but you can't see their transactions.
Well, I can see most of them because I'm the treasurer, so I'm the one backing
that's right.
all of those transactions. They can't see each other's. So most of these are funding, so these are your positions. And as a treasurer, I need to be able to see who I basically gave money to. And some of you have successfully been able to send out wires as well. Oh, somebody bought beer. Okay. Let's see. Smoothie. Oh, that's mine. Let's see. Do I have any wire requests? Oh, I don't think I gave enough money to somebody to be able to have a wire request. But so this is a God's eye view of all the contracts that I'm entitled to see. Behind this, there is all of the APIs which you can use to access this from any endpoint. So including your own, including you could just be sending things in via a Python script if you wanted to, are all exposed here. So in particular, this is pretty well documented in the API docs. So it's a handful of REST calls here. Okay, so kind of the wrapping up a bit. The main point here is that we wrote the business logic out once. We wrote the UI once. We deployed it very quickly, and it's immediately a production ready and publicly available application that you can give to different people. And nothing can happen on that network without it having been spelled out inside the Daml itself. In this case, the UI and the business logic are hosted in the same place, but in a sort of in a stack that doesn't use our cloud. You can imagine that the application is being served by a typical UI server, which is connecting directly to the Daml runtime, which then is connecting to an underlying persistence layer of some sort. And all of those components are completely portable. So if you decide tomorrow that you don't like a SQL database, you can deploy on Sawtooth without changing any of the business logic. I think that's all I wanted to discuss. Manish, did I miss anything? And do you guys have any questions online there?
I think there's a question from Bart. As far as the React app, can you show the source code for connecting to the API? Is there any configuration required?
Okay, good point. Good question.
And you can also, at this point, I think you can also measure you can also mention the free, the GitHub repository where they can download the open source code.
Yeah, yeah. So firstly, to those that have signed up for Daml, you have access to this workspace here. You can create your own projects. You can deploy your own ledgers. The ledger that I picked is deployed here. There's some sample applications, including in React, including in Daml. And by the way, this ledger, all it consists of is the DAR file, which is the Daml, as well as the UI assets, and that's it. I didn't do anything in addition to expose this to this URL that I sent you all. So there's no deployment step. It's deployed already. To see the actual source code, the most interesting part that I had to modify myself this morning is this thing here. So you can see that we built an integration with TypeScript that creates these classes in TypeScript based on the Daml that you create. So you create your Daml model, and all of these objects, all of these types get created immediately in JavaScript. So you can use them as first-class objects. In general, if we look at this thing, you have approximately 200 lines of Daml, including the loan application, about 200 lines of Daml that describes the entirety of the business logic, including lines of credit and all of that stuff. And several thousand lines of React code. But thankfully, we templatized most of it. So all you have to do is go to an open source repo and download that application. And only there's a handful of files you need to change yourself. And of course, if you're an expert on building React applications, you can modify it much more heavily. I'm bad at React, so that's
and obviously, I think most of the people on the call, when they are trying to model out a business process, I think most of the time that you'll spend is defining your business process and then writing out the Daml models for the business process, including what are the assets and what are the actions that can be taken on the assets and who's allowed to take them. And once you have that ready, I think most likely you would want to modify your existing applications so they can connect to those endpoints and send the data and retrieve the data. So you may not have to deploy a consolidated React app because obviously you'll have multiple applications in your enterprise, each of them connecting to the ledger, using their own authentication and exercising the choices. Like in a credit card application, for example, you might want to give something to the to the underwriting department, to the e-statementing group, fraud detection, etc. Each of them are calling their respective endpoints and sending data into the smart contract layer.
Yep, indeed. And specifically the fetch commands for React. Okay, let me go back here. I'll go into ledger settings, and you can also paste your your jot as a fetch command. So I'll just paste that into the chat for, actually, I won't do it in the chat. I'll do it in here. But you could see that this is the fetch command used to get all of the contracts that I'm entitled to. So that's the JS fetch command. And of course that was abstracted, and we had it so that the authentication to Daml was done automatically and things like that. But that's the idea behind the fetch. Okay, any other questions on this?
Well, I guess that's it, Levi. It was really good, actually. So yeah, as you can see, I think this is a great way to bring your applications together using a business process written in Daml. So a couple of advantages that I mentioned before. For the first time now, your entire business process end to end has been coded in Daml, which is executable. So now, at any point when somebody says, "What's the business process?" It's easy to pull out the Daml contracts and show it to folks. And then the second is, of course, you don't need to transform all of your applications to your databases to use the new ledger. Each of the applications can still continue to maintain their individual databases and other processes. The only thing is, whenever if you decide to integrate with the smart contract layer, just call the endpoint, send the relevant data to the smart contract in there, so that then your downstream business intelligence and AI initiatives have the data that they need without having to reconcile, without having to spend all of that time trying to stage and clean the information. Yeah, so I think you've got another request for some money, Levi, from Andrew.
Granted.
Yep. And Ayush, at this point, do you have any comments or anything from Capgemini that you'd like to add from your experience?
Yeah, I think this was great, right? And just to kind of set the stage, like, do we see it mainstream? Yes, we do. I'm sure Manish and Levi, you guys agree to it. As part of financial services, right? I think there are like two aspects of it. I see it mainstream with like capital markets, commercial and retail banking, and insurance as well. But then socially, right, with the COVID-19 crisis, are we seeing this? Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of posting online on crowdfunding. And I think this architecture is robust enough and kind of trustworthy to have those use cases onboarded. So yeah, definitely looking forward to, like kind of seeing this maturity curve for this particular technology and how we continue to, invest into it and do more great stuff with it. Manish.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I think that's all we had. Any questions from anyone? I think there was a question, Levi, before that came in from, I think it came in from Eric on how does Daml actually work on multiple ledgers? How does that integration work? Interested in hearing about Daml's multi-platform support, especially on public chains, and where it fits in the smart contract stack.
Okay, so that's a good question, because the Daml runtime does not occupy a typical space in a typical stack that connects to a DLT. You can think of it. You can think of your favorite DLT. You can still see my screen, right? So I'll just type it in here. But you can think of your favorite DLT as at the bottom of the stack, and using basically an integration adapter that is connecting up to something which is called the Daml runtime. The Daml runtime really is the thing that's hosting Daml, and it is responsible for serving an API to and from applications, apps. So this could be React or integration or MQ or whatever your favorite application is. So, and this niche here is a little bit unique, in that sort of different smart contracts will put all of the business logic sort of in this layer here, rather than get it sort of abstracted. So you can think of these integration adapters as behaving very similar to like a JDBC adapter for SQL. Actually, I should say, or SQL database. Yeah, so it sits above that adapter. So what happens is different DLTs or databases will come with their own adapters, and you can think of like the inserts or read messages being translated by that integration adapter into the native sort of messaging types of the DLT or the SQL databases. So the point is that these three layers remain the same, and you can swap out these backends without losing any of the guarantees of Daml with respect to privacy and integrity. Hopefully that's clear.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Levi. So I think that brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you everyone for joining. And as you can see, this capability has tremendous potential to help with our BI and analytics capabilities. Helps you avoid all of the aggregation, reconciliation, cleaning efforts, or at least minimize them or reduce them significantly. We will be sending out a recording of the webinar latest by tomorrow. And thank you so much to Capgemini and Ayush for hosting us, and looking forward to working with all of you in the near future.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.